the Pledge of Allegiance. So I'll ask everybody to stand. Right? Trisha's laughing at me, I can tell, for some reason.
Because you might not want to stand.
Right, because they're not wearing pants.
Some people might not be able to move their laptop.
Okay, Trisha's been to far more interesting meetings than I have. That's what I get out of this. Okay. I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States
of America
and
to the republic for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty
and
justice for all. Okay, very good.
Very good.
Okay, super. Okay, so first up is the meeting minutes from last month, May. So are there any comments to those, or can we approve? Okay, a motion to approve. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye, great, thank you. Okay, so first up is 111 Banbury Way. No trees are being removed, and it's simply 130 cubic yards of dirt to stay on site. So do we have a resident here for that?
Yes, my name's Eric Dorn. I'm the property owner.
Hi, Eric, welcome.
Thank you. I'm new to this process, so bear with me if I don't know what I'm doing.
That's okay. We're new to Zoom and meeting virtually, but at least we're not new to the shade tree. So that's okay. So Trish, will Ian pull up the drawing?
Yes.
Okay, super. Then I will stop sharing.
That's for 111 Banbury.
Correct.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So, Mr. Dorn, the reason I asked this to come to shade tree was when I look at your plan, there was no trees, no tree table noted for the project, but in the proposed garage, there are a couple of trees that would have to be removed. Not that that's over the limit, but there's also a third tree in the corner. So since the plans were not necessarily fully representative of what you were doing, I thought it best if you could come and talk to the Shade Tree Commission. If compensatory trees are required, you would find that out tonight. If no compensatory trees are required, or you are planting trees, either way, you would leave with closure tonight because the plans were lacking in a few areas.
So we sent an updated plan in, and this doesn't look like the updated plan. So we did put on the plan that there was, where the garage is going, there is 5 smaller trees that would need to be removed, and it is noted on the updated plan that I had sent in. I apologize if I didn't know exactly what a tree table was, but we did put some notes on the plan itself to show which trees were being removed in the garage area.
Well, if you could just through it with us, if since we don't have the latest and greatest, they probably got to us after we posted. Just go through for the Shade Tree Commission, the size and type of tree being removed and the quantity.
Yep, absolutely. So there's 5 small trees, and if you're looking, as you can see on the plan, it's, obviously there's a lot of information on that plan, so it's kind of tough to see. But there's they're labeled by T for tree, and then there's a T1, that's a crepe myrtle tree that's going to have to be removed. 4.5-inch diameter crepe myrtle. There's a 4-inch.
Just so everybody knows, the table is up on the top right-hand side of the plan.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, that is helpful. Thank you.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
So there's a 4-inch eastern red cedar that will have to be removed. That's noted as T2. There's a pomegranate, which is T3, which is a 3-inch. Then there's 2 Japanese red maples, which are noted as T10 and T11, which are towards the front area of the garage. Now, my intention is to try to save those. They're pretty trees. I'm going to replant them somewhere in the yard. I just didn't really have an idea until my wife told me where she wanted them. So my intention is to save those two, but you know, I don't know where to put. I want to tell you to do it. Probably be in the front of the yard is my guess.
Okay. So overall, you're removing 3 trees then, with the idea of relocating 2 others. So that wouldn't actually hit our threshold of 6 trees.
Okay.
So I think, what you're doing is fine. We're happy to give you advice more so if you want to explain anything that's going on construction-wise with the project and how we can help you preserve and protect your existing trees.
Sure. So I think most of the, like, if you look on the plan, there's a T4 that's behind the garage, and it's probably close to about 30 plus feet from where the garage is proposed. So we're still going to put tree protection around that tree. And we saw the the recommendations on the tree protection, so we'll follow those recommendations. There's also a T9 that we're going to put tree protection around also, which is another crepe myrtle. And we'll apply the protection there. We're also going to, because we couldn't meet the perk test requirements, we're going to add some rain barrels also on the property. I have them noted as going in the front of the garage, but I might, depending on where the gutters end up, I'm going to try to capture as much water as I can. I might move them a little bit, but if I need to get approval, I'll make sure I include somebody, whoever needs to know that. But I know that my intention is to try to put them in spots that capture the most water.
This is the updated plan.
Thank you, Trish. So I'm looking for the tree protection fencing.
Yeah, it's a little bit hard to see, but there's a yellow color code around T4 and T9. We probably hard to see, but it is there. I can see it on mine.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a little bit of a yellow kind of hue around the T9 that is to the left of the addition, and T4 that is behind the garage.
Hey, Eric, where are you going to?
The that is here currently will obviously the lumber will be the challenge off the stage. Water will be living in the home for the most while I'm here, and we'll have hoses and stuff, and if there's any kind of mud or anything that gets on anybody's tires, we'll have the ability to wash it all off before they leave.
Yeah, the reason I asked was, that sounds good. The reason I asked was that the neighbor to the north of you on the corner has some pretty nice trees right on your line. And sometimes we just want people to pay attention to if they're going to be disturbing that side of the yard, but it doesn't sound like in this case you are. So
no, we won't. And actually we just had some pretty large branches fall down and break the fence between our 2 properties. So we've been having lots of discussions about trees and having people come out and look at them to make sure they're protected and what branches might need to be trimmed back. And we have good relationships so far, so we should be in pretty good shape.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay. Any other questions from anyone? Okay. Motion to approve?
Aye.
Aye. Great. Thank you, Eric.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, super. Okay, next up
Is that
is
unanimous?
Yeah, I think so.
Thank you.
Yep. Next up is 20 Aldwyn Lane. Is there someone here from that property? Great. Hey, Kevin.
Hi, I'm Kevin Nolan. I'm the homeowner.
Okay.
And like Eric, I'm new to this process, but Eric was excellent. I don't think I'll be as good as him. So.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. We see that you're just removing dirt. Our understanding is that you don't have any trees coming out.
Correct.
So our concern would just be understanding the project and more so like your egress pattern to make sure that any existing trees that they are protected either with tree protection fencing or that we can give you some advice there.
Okay. Yeah. So in the plans, I think maybe there was another plan, but it shows there's a tree section, I think, in the upper right-hand corner. Maybe it's page 2 of this document. But we have a property. What we're doing is we're actually taking down the garage, and now the garage will face forward. So right now we actually park our cars by some big trees in the back, and now the cars will be parked on the front side of the house away from these big trees. We are also doing a 400 square foot addition just off the back of the house. There's some pavement in the back, you can see at the bottom of the plan, and so that pavement will actually be taken out, and we're going to seed or sod that area. So it'll be impervious ground that turns into permeable ground. We have this large, beautiful red oak tree in the back there, and we to our contractor who's builders, and he shared that they will be extremely careful with the drip line of the trees and have no disturbance to the root system. The egress will have vehicles enter the site by our driveway, and there won't be construction entrance. We won't be driving or storing materials after the driveway is removed and reseeded. And then the last, our architect shared that a fence is in place in the plans to catch any soil erosion. And then from a tree fencing standpoint, tree protection, I believe that's on the plan as well, what they're going to do in the back on the red oak.
Right. Yeah, I can see that you have some nice heritage trees there, which we classify as, larger than 30 inches. So I can see the 34 and the 38.
I am listening to a shade tree commission.
Oh.
I think my guys can all handle it, but in case somebody starts being bully, I'm going to jump on and let my
Okay, I think we'll keep moving. I don't think he's talking to us.
Sure.
Okay. Okay, so I can see that the 2 big trees and then your egress pattern is coming along the driveway, and it doesn't appear to be any other trees in that area that would require protection. Okay, so questions from anybody on the committee?
Yeah, Kevin, the big oak, the 54-inch oak, this has nothing really to do with your permitting issue here, but it has some dieback in the top on toward your neighbor's side.
Yeah.
That's something you might just want to deal with as you go forward on this.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said it. We actually had a tree person come out last week and take a look, and we're going to clean up the red oak. So Strawbert will be coming out and taking care of that.
Okay.
Definitely, we have seen that and need to do something. Thank you.
So would there be tree protection? I don't see that on the plan here. So
I think it's on page 2, maybe. Does this have a second page?
We just got one page, so.
Okay. So there's
there was additional pages. Steve and I discussed it. What had to come in. The package was so enormous that we were just trying to get the best plan to put up. So
we didn't see. In my look at this, I didn't see any that noted anything about the trees. So this was just as representative as any other page. So I don't recall any tree protection. That's why we just did this one page instead of 20. This showed as much about the trees as any others.
Is there, can I share my screen?
Please do.
Okay. Here we go. Let's see if this works. So this is on, let me zoom out a little. So this was something that I have proposed site plan. So this is our structure right here. You'll see that the driveway here this is where we're removing the some pavement. And then in the upper right-hand corner is the tree section. So hold on. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, I see the TP now.
Sorry.
It's down on the bottom.
Oh,
of the
yeah.
Yeah, it's
Right,
a,
right.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, that is the tree protection detail.
Okay.
Great.
Yeah, I think that looks. Questions? Okay, motion to approve. All in favor? Aye. Okay, great. Kevin,
All
good
right,
luck
thank
with
you
your
so much.
project.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
You did
Take care.
really well.
Thank you.
Yes, you can come again.
All right, good, thanks.
Okay, good. Next up is 117 Ragnar Chester Road. Do we have anybody here from that property?
Patrick.
Yes, it's,
Go ahead, Scott.
yeah, and Scott from Bentley Homes.
Okay. Okay, welcome, Scott. I don't know if you've been here before, but if not, if you can just tell us a little bit about your project. And of course, we're most interested in the trees being removed, then therefore the trees being replaced, and the tree protection fencing or anything to protect existing trees.
Madam
So,
Chairman,
this
if I
was-
could just
Oh, go
jump
ahead.
in. So Mr. Emerson was at the
Mhm.
last meeting, and there was a
Mhm.
discrepancy in the tree chart. He had some
Oh, okay.
trees listed that were viable, and based on our arborist and his arborist, they're not viable. So what occurred was what he was proposing to plant didn't match from a compensatory standpoint what he listed. So Mr. Emerson was going to go back, adjust the tree tables to show what trees truly required compensatory planting, and then show his compensatory planting. So the commission went through the whole project. It really just came down to making sure the tree table was amended properly.
Okay, great. Thanks, Steve. So I assume we're looking up here in the left corner. Yep.
So if it's okay to chime in, this is Patrick Stewart, the applicant's landscape architect. We basically removed the two heritage trees that were deemed hazardous by Mr. Ryan Day from Shriner. We had him come out and look at the trees after our last meeting at your request. We issued a letter. He issued a letter and a report that we submitted. So basically what it comes down to is we now have a requirement of 15 replacement trees on the property, and 6 of those have to be a large canopy tree, which we've provided. And we've also provided 9 evergreens to make up to the 15 number. And you'll see on the plan, the larger circles that we've showed are hackberry, sweet gum, and white oak. They're the large canopy trees we've proposed. And then we have a combination of American holly, green giant arborvitae, and Norway spruce. We have some evergreens along Radnor Chester Road to provide a little bit of a buffer for the future residents. We have some buffers along the northern property line to help buffer the residents to the north. And then along the eastern property line in the back, we have some additional evergreen trees, which we didn't have last time we met with you. So I believe we have more evergreens than are required, and we have the 6 canopy trees that are required by your code. So I think we're exceeding the total number of replacement trees for the project.
If I may ask, at the last meeting, you were talking about using whips or live stakes as fill-in. Is that still something you're looking at doing, Patrick?
No, Steve, we eliminated that from the plan. We just went with canopy trees, large canopy trees, and then we went with mature evergreen trees that would be they'd be installed at 8 to 10 feet in height.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you, Patrick.
So I do recall this discussion from last time and the tree widths and trying to get to the right total and whether they were included or not. So any questions from anyone? Let me start there. So the one thing that's going through my mind, I think we're good on the tree requirement replacement. That looks good. I think last time, by memory, we went through like the egress pattern and protection of any existing trees. So I don't think we need to revisit that unless someone feels otherwise.
I'm good.
Okay, okay. So any other questions for Patrick? Okay, motion to approve? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Great. Okay, so Patrick, thank you, and thanks for coming back.
Thank you for your time tonight. Appreciate it.
Yep.
See you, Pat.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Next up is Villanova University, CEER building. Do we have anybody here from Villanova? Trisha's nodding.
Yes. Hello. My name is Mike Kissinger. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, Mike.
Yes, yes, we can.
Okay. So we have a few representatives here tonight with Villanova as well as BLT Architects and Brad from Ground Reconsidered, which is the landscape architect for the project as well. So if I can share my screen, you guys okay with that? Everybody see okay?
Yep.
Yes.
All right. So just giving a quick overview of our land development project. I think everybody's familiar with Villanova from, this is just an aerial view of it. We'll give you a quick one. I know you have a long agenda tonight. So, but you can see that the campus here, and this is Ceer, the Center for Education, Engineering and Education, Center for Engineering, Education and Research building. So again, we have a land development. We went to the Planning Commission earlier this month, and we're actually going to the board shortly. And so what we wanted to just hone this down for you guys. I know what you guys are hopefully looking for in terms of landscaping and such. So we wanted to give you a brief presentation. This is the current view of existing Ceer in the background here from Lancaster Avenue. And this is what it would look like in the future. So again, I'll just go back to it so you can see the different parallels. But Villanova is really doing a development to really better serve their existing students, give a lot of state-of-the-art laboratory space. And so that's the reason for this real expansion here. So here, this is from Spring Mill Road. You can see the view of Ceer and what it will look like in the future. You can see it's a beautiful building. And just to orient yourselves on the site, you can see existing Ceer is kind of outlined here with my hand. And then we have an expansion that wraps around it. So a lot of what you see here is existing roadway network, existing parking across the back. This road here is existing as well. However, it is slightly off from this intersection over. It is slightly moved south to add some additional parking there. And this road here that runs around the east side of Ceer is also relocated to the east to allow for the development. One of the big challenges of this project and this site is stormwater. So you can see here, there's a little bit of a blue hue to things that are stormwater basins. Those are surface basins that you see there, and some of the landscaping. So at this point, Brad, if you're on and can hear.
Yeah, I'm here. So I think Mike pretty much summarized the lay of the land and why some of the vehicular areas are moving. From a planting perspective, one of the things that we are trying to accomplish is focusing our replacement trees kind of west of Simpson Hall, which is a small student housing building, to buffer the college and the Lancaster Avenue from the campus a little bit. It's also serving as a backdrop to these sort of tiered bioswale and rain garden composition. In front of that, along Lancaster Avenue, we have a line of flowering trees at the foreground of the stormwater feature, which are the same cherry trees that you see in Washington, D.C. So you'd have that same sort of blossom. Mike, can you, sorry, I was going to highlight one tree that we'll revisit. So that one tree right there is a big weeping beech. We've gone to some pretty big lengths to make sure that we can keep that with our grading and routing our stormwater around that, and also being conscious of our pedestrian paths and the network that connects the campus. We'll revisit that again later.
Okay. So just one of the challenges of this site is simply the stormwater that we're providing. We are doing a series of green roofs in order to try to accommodate the impervious. However, I'll show you a few things just moving around the plan. There are some rain gardens that we're using that are up along the existing structures. We have underground basins here along the parking road, as well as here at the front door. We have an underground structure here that also services as an above ground there. So you can see there's a ground swale, but this larger boxed area is an underground basin that would exist below it. And those structures also exist on 30 that Brad was just referring to. So off of Lancaster, these are those cascading rain gardens that Brad was referring to. And these just provide a good amount of disturbance, but you can also see this underground basin that sits below them is really requiring a good amount of disturbance of the land and along 30. We also have an underground basin here and an underground basin here on the south side. So as you can see, we have this building completely surrounded with stormwater, trying to utilize as much space as we can to get a variety of different systems and a variety of different treatment methods to truly utilize the land best we can. But this was quite a challenge and provides quite a challenge to Brad and the landscaping. So, Brad, the next plan, or did I want to add anything?
No, I think it's safe to go to the next one.
Okay.
So the plan here is showing the heritage trees in the darker line, which are being removed. In the thinner black line, those are non-heritage trees being removed. And any tree that's shown in a light dash is existing to remain, and we would protect those trees. So you can see that we are unfortunately removing quite a few heritage trees. Some of that's out of necessity for the building expansion, because that's where the new footprint will be. Part of the removals are also due to the pretty significant footprint of the stormwater management system. I think that's what we need to highlight on this plan, Mike.
Okay.
Yeah. So I should mention too, programmatically, the lawn along Lancaster Ave, there's a pretty expansive lawn, and it was critical to the university programmatically for how they function with events and providing an amenity for the students, that lawn be remain open and accessible for a variety of uses. One of the early approaches that we discussed was moving our stormwater system into that lawn area. And ultimately we decided this was representative of the best practices and achieves the programmatic goals of the school. So this is the proposed plan. I mentioned that we're clustering most of our replacement trees, which we're exceeding the required replacements by 1 right now, but we are completely meeting the ordinance. Predominantly the trees that are being planted are native. There are a couple non-natives on there, such as the cherry trees along Lancaster. Of course, the rain gardens would be fully planted as in addition, and there'd be mixed shrub beds associated with the new building. Is there anything that we need to add, Mike?
My dog was barking, so I muted. I am muted here. So it just in hearing the tone of previous conversations, we do have tree protection fence shown on our E&S plans, which I'm hoping will load here quickly. But we will, provide a tree protection fence as required, and well, looks like we will need to add those details there. But we will provide tree protection fence to the extent required by the code as well. But we can answer any questions you may have about the project.
Could you or Brad, sorry for interjecting, could you or Brad step us through the tree replacement table? That's always an important item for the Shade Tree Commission. I know Brad had noted, that you met the requirements, but it's always good to step through this.
Sure. So on the left, we have the trees being removed and what their sizes are. So 6 to 18, 19 to 29, and greater than 30. And then we list the quantity in each of those size categories. And then we sort of just regurgitate the ordinance. So the replacement requirement based on that size category. Quantity trees required. So we calculate that, and we are also indicating that there is a requirement for large canopy trees. So of the replacements required, there's 120. 64 of those have to be large canopy trees. We are providing 121 trees in total, 64 large canopy trees. All of our trees will be no less than the minimum size. We're actually a little bit larger. Just slightly. And then we have our parking lot trees. So total quantity of spaces and then proposed trees. So we're providing that tree for every 10 spaces.
Hey, Brad.
I believe everything on our plant list is compliant with the township ordinance.
Hey, Brad, I just have one question. If you look at the 120 required 120, which includes 84 canopies, and then you look at the table below, you don't have 84 trees in that table.
64.
Yeah, it's 64 large, but 80. The 30-inch replacements should be. You lost 14 trees, and you need 6 per 6 canopy trees per 14.
That's
which
correct.
gives you 84, right? 84 canopy trees. 56 of those are large. But if you look at the table right underneath this, I mean, maybe it's just me because I'm a horrible math person. It just seems like if I look at the canopy trees, I don't come up with 60. I don't come up with 84 trees in. The 84 number represent in quantity trees required.
So for greater than 30-inch heritage trees, we're permitted to plant evergreens and a certain percentage of flowering understory trees. So
James, there's more trees being utilized because making up for that comp of the ornamental and.
Oh, okay.
So the replacement value for the greater than 30 inches is 4 large canopies.
Yeah, that does, the math works out for me.
Yep.
Okay.
The whole idea that it's 4 times.
I'm backing out of this because I'm terrible this way. I'm sorry to waste the time.
No worries, no worries.
That's okay. He's our tree expert. I can do the math. But actually, I would be curious to see what are the trees that you're using for the large canopy trees. So can we go down and look at the types of trees?
Yeah. So I will note that the only non-native that's sort of sort of closer to the public realm would be the prunus there, the Akibono cherry. The ginkgo that's listed is more inboard of the campus. All the other trees are sort of in that zone of sort of west of Simpson Hall, predominantly. We're using quite a few oaks, so nice, sturdy, long-lived, big trees. We're also providing some trees like Nyssa that are going to fruit and have berries and provide some bird food.
It's an excellent list. As long as the ginkgos are male.
Yeah, well, the cultivar we've had good luck with autumn gold, and the eastern red cedar that are listed, that is planted right at Lancaster Ave along Simpson Hall to screen Simpson Hall from Lancaster Ave. There's a small sort of student patio right on the back there.
Okay. So I think if we go back to where you have the existing heritage trees shown that are being removed, we can't help but have a few questions there.
Sure.
So we've certainly seen Villanova come before us before, and I think you always meet the requirements, and it's a beautiful campus with lovely landscaping. But I must admit, it's probably, I'm speaking for myself, but probably my colleagues as well, it's a little bit painful to see 14 heritage trees coming out. So I can understand the ones at the top there that you're showing that are where the building expansion is going.
Yeah.
So I think that makes sense. That's probably unavoidable. But the ones closer to Lancaster Avenue where you're putting the rain garden. So I assume the trees alone are not substantial enough to manage the storm water?
No, they're not.
Is that correct?
Yeah, so unfortunately there's, I mean, just to speak bluntly, there's some issues on the site where infiltration is better in certain locations than others. So we've a ton of testing around to try to find where the best infiltration rates were to meet our stormwater credit for Radnor. So unfortunately, these two basins here along Lancaster are two of the better performing basins. And we've had not much success in here. So, you know, we're moving through some of the best performing infiltration rates that we have. And unfortunately, like I said, just looking at the campus and how spread out we have already made it. The steep slope here, if we looked at putting basins over here, and it would then disturb all of this pocket of trees. We've looked at many, many different areas, and unfortunately, these were some of the premium spots for stormwater, and we had to do it to meet code.
Except for if you were to move them, let's say, to the right. I guess that would be to the east and maybe a little bit north, where there aren't any trees. Am I correct on that? Like in the upper right-hand corner there?
Here?
It's a little off the screen.
And further.
It's a little off the screen.
Yeah.
You can just get a glimpse of the canopy by that red line. There is a big, beautiful, massive tree right there. So we wanted to stay well clear of that.
Right. And then this is also a very large green space that's utilized for students. This is unfortunately the bottom of the hill, lower spot of the site. And so a stormwater basin, if we were to take this little stormwater basin and move it up the hill here, the disturbance area would double just based on the slopes of the hills. We tried it. We actually had drawn it here at different iterations through the project. We've really tried to put it up here. We've put it all over the site, and unfortunately, these were the spaces with viable infiltration rates, and that kept them minimized. But unfortunately, they do have issues about they do have issues with the trees.
Okay.
You know, the precious.
Can you go back to the drawing with the that shows the heritage trees?
Yeah.
This one here?
Yes, that one. Okay.
All large trees, of course, are precious, but these are
I was going to say, can you tell
white
what kind?
pine.
Yeah, they're not
They're
great trees.
spruces. They're of the trees that are there. They're what I would say the least precious. They're not the greatest specimens. We steered clear of the really large copper beech, the really large weeping beech.
Yeah.
There's a very large exodium where we're realigning the road. So we have gone to some lengths to try to preserve what we consider the best of the specimens.
Yeah, and Eileen, that these trees that are there, some are large. However, they are sort of scrubby looking. So I think the landscaping would be a lot nicer if it was, if we had to choose this area. We were trying to keep the lawn as clear as possible because we do events, we do Special Olympics and all kinds of things where they use that green for track and field and things like that. So it's really important that we keep the lawn as clear as we can. I think that's the best place that they have found for these trees.
Yeah. And it sounds like you've tried some different scenarios. So I do appreciate that. Yeah. So questions from the committee?
I would just say that as a whole, Villanova is, in my perspective, in my feeling about Villanova and trees is they've done a magnificent job on the campus in general. So their intentions, by what they've shown to me over the last few years, and I've taken a couple of tours with the folks that take care of the trees there. I think we have to have some trust in how they do their process correctly. It's I think this is one of the, in a way, agree that are not the type of species that they're putting back in. They're inferior to that. So I'm sort of okay with it.
And unfortunately, this is
okay. Thanks,
the
Matt.
stormwater management requirements. Because of our stormwater management requirements and what Mike Kishinger said about moving around the basin. So we have both ordinances, the Stormwater Management Ordinance, which they're required to meet. And I know that does impact the trees some, but I'd like to just echo what Matt had noted. So in the housing development, the west parking lot, and the other building they built on the corner, the Performing Arts Center, Villanova has not spared much expense. They've met our requirements. We asked them to go over and above on certain things, and they've done so. So I would agree with Matt. As much as they wish to make sure they meet the requirements of this ordinance from their own basis, they try to do things that are best for the campus and the view of the campus.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's easy to see and evident if you walk around the campus. So thanks, Steve. Any other comments?
Just wanted to say I thought the other side of the campus that they just did with all the trees there, I think you guys did a great job. So
phenomenal job.
Hopefully it looks like that. And good luck.
Yeah. Okay, sounds like we're ready to move for approval. Yeah, thanks, James. Okay, so motion to approve? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, super. Best of luck to you, and thank you.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Okay,
bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, so next up, that brings us to our last resident, I believe, 131 Runnymede.
This is John.
Oh, yes,
John.
it is. Hello, John. Welcome.
John Hosbach, you're
John,
up.
do you want to take us through this?
I'm having trouble hearing you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I can hear you.
We can hear you. Can you hear us, John?
Can I ask, maybe we just come back to this and we could get to, when John takes care of his audio issues, the clearing permit for 107 Lantoga, we do have an applicant in the audience, so to speak, and maybe John can work on his audio.
Sure.
If that's okay.
Yep, no problem. Yeah, absolutely. So 107 Latonga. Colin, is that you?
107 Lantoga. Yes, I'm the landowner.
Oh, okay. Good. Welcome.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so we understand you want to clear 6 trees.
That's correct.
Okay, good. So that's what prompts you to come. And is there a drawing to share? It looks like there's a permit to share.
I submitted the site drawings which show which trees are scheduled to be removed and the trees we are adding. We are removing 5 spruce and 1 dogwood, and replacing those with 3 dogwood and 3 maple. And there are 4 existing cedar trees and 1 existing maple to remain.
Okay. Is there a tree table on here that indicates the size of the trees being removed?
If you go to page 1 of 4, it shows the tree sizes, which are 13-inch spruce, 15-inch spruce, 18-inch spruce, a 6-inch dogwood, and 2 12-inch spruces. And that's shown on sheet 1 of 4. Okay. And it's kind of hard to read. There's solid X's through those trees, and the 3 trees are in the 6 trees to be removed are in the front of the existing structure shown in red.
Okay.
Lantoga is to the east of the plan. And Lantoga runs between Lancaster and Conestoga.
Can everybody hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, we
Great.
can, John.
Great, perfect.
Okay.
I don't know what was going on. I couldn't hear you guys at all. I don't know what was going on.
Oh.
But anyway, I'm back in the swing.
Okay, so we'll cover this property and then we'll come back to you, John.
Got it.
And you can see we have the tree protection of the existing cedars in the rear, which will not be affected by construction. We have a existing driveway, which is shown that we're going to use as our construction entrance. And the new driveway is to the north, which you could see on page 3 of 4.
Okay. And do you have a tree replacement table so we can see like the new trees that are going in, what types, sizes, and where they are going in?
So you'll see those along the southern side of the property, which are dogwood, maple, and then a new dogwood and maple in the rear behind the new proposed garage.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah. So that makes sense, a 1-for-1 replacement given the sizes of the trees, and 6 are shown there. None are required to be large canopy, even though 3 of them are, so that's great. So any questions from anyone on the committee?
Can I interrupt for 1 second? Colin, not to put you on the spot, but so we received a couple calls regarding a tree on that property, and Colin did go out. Can you explain to us the issue with that tree? Because I know it is a heritage tree.
Yeah, so that's the existing maple in the rear of the property. If you go to page 1, it's better shown than on page 3. And it's the existing maple in the far southwestern corner of the lot. During the windstorm last week, it lost a small branch that fell and it's been disposed of. But there was no other structural damage to the tree.
So it is savable?
It is savable and we intend to keep it.
Okay.
Okay, good.
And then the existing to remain cedars are also in the rear of the property. You can see on page 1. There's 3 existing cedars and 4 existing cedars and 1 existing maple that are going to remain. And then the 3 new dogwood and 3 new maple are going to be planted.
Mm-hmm. Okay, questions from anyone? Okay, all in favor to approve? Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Good. Colin, thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.
You as well.
Okay, super. John, now you're up.
What is the site we were looking at? Because I couldn't hear it before. I could see lips moving, but I couldn't hear the site.
Runnymede.
That's okay. 131 Runnymede.
Great. Okay, so 131 Runnymede. So this is our first case of bamboo intrusion as per ordinance. Contacted probably early November, December regarding the intrusion of bamboo coming from the adjacent property. It has infiltrated into the person who's complaining at that address noted above. It is within probably the thickest, most dense areas within 1 foot of the property line. And obviously our ordinance calls for 20 feet. So I am looking for the direction of your folks, how we want to handle this, since this is our first case. How do we want to approach the neighboring property, and what is going to be our strategic plan going forward? Since this is similar to the grandfather clause here, I mean, it's been there probably, my estimation from looking at the plant, it's been there for at least 15 years. That's my estimation.
John, I have a question for you.
Yep.
The complaining neighbor, are they complaining because it's on their property or because it exists?
Well, first of all, they understand the ordinance and they know that we have the 20-foot rule and it's right up against the property. It's actually impeding on their property. We're starting to see the stalks arise onto the property. And I'd be willing to bet that if we air excavated all the soil around that area, that all those rhizomes are now on the person who's complaining about the bamboo.
So it sounds to me like the people complaining would like to see the bamboo taken out.
Well, I mean, they understand we have an ordinance in place now, so they're looking for us to enforce it.
And I can assure everyone on the commission that if you just take a piece of the bamboo out, it's not really going to solve the problem.
That's correct. So it's a threefold process. Obviously, they're going to have to do field mowing, herbicide treatment, and then culling it again with a secondary treatment. And then some sort of supportive barrier, which I believe the only methodology that works is to dig a 5-foot trench, 2 foot wide, and fill it with concrete and leave a 3-inch lap over the soil plane in order to control this, which in this could end up costing about $30,000 to manage this.
They want us to do anything about the hazardous tree that's there?
Well, that's coming into play. So that spiked up the bamboo discussion again, because they're saying that they can't see the hazardous trees, they can't see the fallen debris, the bamboo is blocking all their visuals of any danger. So that's what spearheaded this bamboo circle back on our part.
John, have you talked to the homeowner that has the bamboo at all? Is he?
I have not. I want to wait until we spoke tonight on what our game plan was going to be. I want to bring you guys into the loop since this is our first case. If it was just a typical homeowner planting it, we could go over there, slap them on the wrist, make them remove it. This is a big deal.
Yeah.
I did sit in, just so you know, just for my own education, I saw that Lower Merion had a case 2 weeks ago regarding a resident that had bamboo almost $100,000 worth of damage to the neighboring property with the bamboo. So I sat in on the Zoom call, I got permission, and the township is going to give them so many days to rectify the situation, remove it, pull it back off the property line. And if not, township is going to send their contractor over and feed them the bill.
So how big a patch how big a patch is it, John?
It's been a while since I've been out there. Great question. I think it's probably around 25 to 35 feet in length.
Okay, so we had, on my property, I had 35 by 15, 40-foot bamboo. It was creeping into my yard. It wasn't creeping anywhere else, so it was creeping on me. But we took it out with either Brendan Gibbons or John Ward came in and dug it out, and we had used Roundup for 4 years on everything else that kept coming up because it kept shooting up. But it wasn't 30 grand. I mean, we didn't do concrete. We didn't, and we have eradicated it. I mean, my feeling would be we tell the owner to get rid of the bamboo. And then we
so what I'm told from the person who is concerned about the bamboo, that they are not getting anywhere with their neighbor. Because I told them to start there. Obviously, it's a neighbor dispute.
Yeah.
I feel like if they're not getting anywhere in regards to the actual neighbor-friendly methodology, so that's why she's asking for the township to intervene.
I agree with that. I agree. That's the right move for you. You know, that's correct. But what I'm saying is I don't think we should lay down a methodology for getting rid of the bamboo to this owner. We shouldn't say, you have to do these 19 things. Well, I think what the township should say is you need to get rid of the bamboo.
Yep.
And then
that's what I'm looking for.
If he can dig it out himself, and if he can, but I don't think we should start telling people they have to put in concrete walls. And you know, I mean, you may be totally right that this will come back to haunt this guy or us. But I think at this point I don't think we need to be totally brutal with
I believe just from my conversations that the neighbor who owns the bamboo is being pretty brutal.
Okay. Well,
but that is hearsay, and there would be, you know, two sides to every story. So
you are correct.
I like to take that with a grain of salt. Okay, so John, do you know how wide is the bamboo, like from the property line going?
I don't remember. It's been a while since I've been out there. Bob Z took this over for a little bit. He was handling it, and then me and Steve jumped back on it just recently.
So what we're looking for, Eileen, is to get a sense of how the Shade Tree Commission wishes to move forward. From there, I would contact the solicitor. Since this is our very first one, so I would provide the solicitor with the input from the Shade Tree Commission. Then we would go to the ordinance and move forward. Not that it would come from the solicitor, but with some guidance from the solicitor.
You know what the ordinance is, Steve?
20 feet, 20 feet off the property line.
No. Is there a link to it?
No,
Like
10 feet.
Is it our responsibility?
James, I'll help you out with that in a second. Yeah, so I have the one that we approved, and we landed on 10 feet because I remember we thought 20 feet would possibly be excessive. So that's why I was asking what the width of it is. Potentially, the property owner could just remove 10 feet, and then they would have to constantly maintain that 10 feet of clearance from the property line if for some reason they liked the bamboo and wanted it there otherwise.
Eileen, didn't we have something in the ordinance for grandfathering in for existing condition?
Yes, and let me I'll share with you what I pulled up. Let me see. Hang on one second. Okay. I can make this a little bigger.
Oh yeah, here pre-existing.
We did have 20 feet in there because I do have notes that have 20 feet, but I guess we did change it to 10, Eileen, I think.
Yeah, we did, because I remember discussing that.
Yep.
But because so many of our properties are narrow, like 20 feet would put you in the middle of some property. So we landed on,
So
we thought 10 feet would be enough.
Yep. So we do have barriers in there. So Matt, we do have methodologies that they need to be following, such as 10 feet from any public right of way or any property line, and they shall provide barriers to prevent. So the concrete barrier is something that we can propose because we have it in our ordinance.
I see that.
Can I make a recommendation, Eileen? How about for the first one, myself and Matt go over, introduce ourselves, talk to them, let them know that, because they might not even know they have an ordinance. Let them know that we have an ordinance, explain to them what's going on here, try to get a feeling of his demeanor with this issue. And then at that point, give him some time to digest it and come back to us with a plan to mitigate it. And in the meantime, we can also get Mr. Rice on the phone and get his take on it.
And John, I'll attend with you both. So there's actually a staffer from the town with you.
Perfect.
I'll join you.
Got it.
Yeah, I'm in favor of that. I think that sounds like a good idea.
Just because it's our first one, and this is probably not a known entity to most residents.
So there's no grandfathering? I'm not seeing it on this page.
There is not.
No, pre-existing bamboo, removal, cutting, or trimming required. It's in the last paragraph. So it's basically.
We did discuss the grandfathering. I remember we did have conversation, but I think we threw it out.
I think the whole idea is that if you have bamboo, you have to manage it.
Correct.
So
I agree with Matt not to come down too heavy-handed. I mean, if I was handed a bill for $30,000, I wouldn't be able to comply with that. That's a big hit.
Yeah, I mean, my feeling is that we say we visit this owner, and we tell him that the bamboo has to be taken care of 10 feet from the property line. That he has to manage it. It can't grow back there. It can't encroach again. And whatever is 10 feet deep on his property is his problem. And trust me, it will be his problem. But it's like I just don't think the first case we need to. I feel. I don't even awkward, think throwing.
Yeah.
Like, I think what we're after is to alleviate the suffering for the neighbor who's complaining.
So
I think a big part of
the neighbor's a homeowner association. You know, it's an apartment complex. What was I going to say? Oh, the other thing is I'm seeing a versus in here. Is there an existing lawsuit between the neighbor and the homeowners association? Or are we just simply being asked to enforce the ordinance?
Enforce the ordinance.
That's it. Okay.
That's it.
I phrased it that way so that we knew that it was just, there was an issue between one and the other.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, and for me, I think this could be the 10th person, the 20th person, the 100th person. I think basically when we wrote this, the idea was, hey, we wanted, and part of this has to be us leading with education, that we don't want folks planting bamboo because it is invasive. So let's not get folks in this bind to begin with. And then if you do have it, in order to be fair to your neighbors, you need to keep 10 feet of your property clear of this bamboo. And however they want to maintain that, I think is up to them, such that it doesn't spread into their neighbor's yard.
I mean, you're correct. So June of 19, the township issued a letter based on the ordinance being passed, and it says that bamboo is already planted, will be grandfathered in, but must not be allowed to spread to neighboring properties. And it goes on to the various ways to do it. So I agree with Matt. We should not get into means and methods. The message should be, you need to remove X feet of your bamboo and keep it under control. And hopefully we can talk that person into doing so. If not, we will enforce, we will enforce the ordinance with whatever the teeth were inside the ordinance. So that shouldn't be a problem.
Right. Yeah, I would agree. And I think it's fine for Matt to share his experience of how he did it in his own property, and then to give the homeowner some time to figure out, okay, what plan do they want to pursue? Because that, I'm sure they're going to have to explore some options. So are there any other questions first before I try and summarize our direction? Yeah, go right ahead, Trish.
I just want to know if you're going to, go out and explain to the resident and come back with a plan. I just need to know how long you want to give them to come back.
Trish, I was thinking the same.
I think 30 days.
That's something we could decide when we meet with the resident to see what their situation is. Like you said, we don't want to be heavy-handed, but we don't want to give not 6 months. So if you would allow us to maybe meet with this person and come up with a reasonable time frame, if that would be okay.
Yeah, Trish, if you're thinking of a way that it doesn't fall off our radar screen, I would be in favor of 2 to 3 months.
I just want to put it in the meeting minutes, that's all.
Yeah. Yeah. So could we use that guidance? If it's something longer than
90
3
days.
months, that would be, yeah, I think 90 days sounds fair.
I think that's a
That would
great
give
maximum.
plenty of time to get quotes. Yeah, agree to maximum. Yep. Okay. Any other
So I
questions?
just put it within 90 days.
James?
Got it.
Yeah, the ordinance does anybody know where I can find it? I just want to look and review it.
I'll send you a copy, James. I'll send you it online.
And
Yep.
the other question was, this paper that you have shared, Eileen, this is what we came up with at a meeting. Is the enforcement, does that go to the shade tree or does that go to the Board of Commissioners?
James, usually enforcement comes from staff, and there's an appeal process. So I don't have the ordinance in front of me. Most likely it's going to come from me in some fashion.
Got it.
Yep.
From a staff person. And then there's an appeal process, and I can't remember if the appeal, I mean, in almost everything, there is some type of appeal. But the letter, if you will, that says, hey, you must do this based on chapter and verse would most likely come from me. Usually does for the shade tree stuff. And then there is a way to appeal things.
Gotcha. Just curious.
Can I just, I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt. So I was looking for it also, and I can't find it. I think what has happened is the press release that Molly wrote that talked about the passing of the ordinance and the specifics around it has been uploaded twice. So as where the ordinance should be, and then it's also up there. So I think maybe the ordinance itself needs to be uploaded on the website.
We will make sure that occurs.
Thank you.
Commissioner, absolutely.
Yeah, I agree, because if we tell somebody that there's an ordinance, they should be able to actually look at it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking for it. I can't find it anywhere.
Yeah, there's 2 things listed, and they're both the press release that Molly issued.
Just to protect the township before they go in to talk to the resident.
Absolutely. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, so to summarize, we'll have Steve, Matt, and John visit the homeowner, ordinance, experience, and we'll allow plan proposal, within the next 90 days. If not, we will, the township will look at enforcement.
That's good.
And in the interim, we will find or website.
My calendar.
It is on the website.
Okay.
1-05. If you go to the document center, that's where it is. So we'll make sure it's going to be posted on the excuse me, shade tree page.
Mhm.
But just so everybody knows, it is available. So if you just query bamboo ordinance, you get Molly's letter. But if you go to the document center, and Eileen, just to you are correct. Pre-existing bamboo shall be no closer than 10 feet for pre-existing. And also some of the stuff John said. So we'll make sure this is up on our shade tree page. And the notice of violation, I don't know if we're that specific, but I usually do the shade tree ones.
Yeah, we were. Oh, go ahead, Steve.
So
Sorry.
we should be okay.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
recall we purposefully didn't put a fine or, we said we would handle that on a case-by-case basis, I believe.
Well, there is actually a magisterial, it can get pretty big, but that's later on.
Okay.
So,
Well, hopefully we won't get there.
yes, I agree.
Okay, good. So motion to approve the path forward? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, great, thank you. Let's see, I'll stop sharing. Okay, so let's see, so back to our agenda. We're now all the way down at goals, which is good progress. We still have a lot of old business, new business. I think realistically, we will not cover everything tonight. So I would propose that we talk about, I would say, two main goals. If I had to look at this list and prioritize, I would say it's the proactive resident and business communication based on our meeting last time, and the fall tree planting. And then I would say we go to new business. And is there anything on that list from anyone that's high priority on new business?
Madam Chair, there is one thing that's actually on old business. We talked about it. It's the Harford Trail. So at some point, if possible, I respectfully request we get that based on the Shade Tree Commission input. I'm hoping to go to the Board of Commissioners in July to request to go to bid for the trail. So we need your input to update the tree table and make any changes that you see fit.
Okay, then I would say why don't we do that first?
Fantastic.
Okay.
So the way I'd like to do this is I'm going to take you through real quickly the trail and the history of the trail, and then the township arborist can take you through the tree plantings. So if you're familiar with Harford Park and the Radnor Elementary School, Ian, if you could go to the next page. One more, please. One more. And another, if you don't mind. Okay, let's stop there. So 2011 and 12, there used to be the remnants of a driveway where you could walk from Radnor Station, come over our pedestrian bridge through the elementary school parking lot, up this vestiges of a driveway and access Harford Park. There was a lawsuit regarding that, and it was determined that that driveway was no longer the township's. We were using it as a de facto trail. Subsequent to that, there was a two-lot subdivision by Bentley Homes. That driveway was actually part of that property of the lawsuit. That became their driveway to the interior lots. So into our bond issue, the Board of Commissioners provided funds for the township to create a parallel trail so that this will get back, will be able to be used. So it's not just a walking trail for when you're at Harford Park. I take my dog, have taken my dogs there, and it's a nice area to walk down, but you can't do it anymore. But also it's a way for people to access the Kreuzberg Center. So when this driveway got cut off, that caused much angst amongst the some of the public. So Commissioner Booker, who's the ward this in, was very helpful in getting this in front of the rest of the board. We obtained easements from Brandywine Realty Trust to basically put the trail entirely on their property. Before we came to you, there was a considerable amount of trees to be removed. We took another look at the plan. We really narrowed that down. So this is going to be a woodchip trail. It's a natural, it's in a somewhat natural setting. It's very wooded. And if you look at your screen, the upper right-hand corner, that's actually how you get into Harford Park. And then as you progress to the lower left corner, if you could go one more sheet, please, Ian. You just keep paralleling this driveway. And one more, please. And then it comes back out to an existing macadam path that takes you down towards the Radnor Elementary School. And so the school kids can use it to get to the park. You can cross the pedestrian bridge, get to the Radnor station. If you get to the Radnor station and the Radnor Tap Trail is constructed, which we hope it will be, you can cross King of Prussia Road, take the Radnor Tap Trail, and you're on your way through. So this is actually somewhat of a connector to that. So I'm going to shift over to John. He's going to let you know about the trees we're proposing to be removed. I'm sorry, Eileen, you had a question?
Oh, you're very good, Steve. Yeah, no, I was just trying to orient myself. I understand the Harford Park is where Mainline School is and where
Right.
the dog park is. Okay, so now that I'm oriented, I'm just not clear on what area of the property are you talking about?
If you drove into Harford Park and you follow the driveway all the way up, you come upon a parking area. If you drove up into that parking area, instead of parking right or left and just drove straight,
yes,
that's going to be where the trail, like there's a fence there.
Oh, I understand. Yes.
Right?
Okay.
So you would, that's where the beginning of it will be, or the end, whichever way you're looking.
Yep.
And then it would head south towards Radnor Elementary School.
Yeah. Now I understand. Okay, great. So you're connecting kind of the elementary school to like where Mainline School is, creating
Correct.
a trail through there.
Steve,
Okay.
Steve, there's no way of getting from Harford Park onto that trail now. It's blocked, isn't it?
Correct.
Yeah.
So right now, the trail is gone. It's two of our residents' common driveway, and it is private property. That's why we had to obtain an easement from Brandywine.
Yeah.
And so what we did, so I just want to make sure everybody understands. John Hosback, the township arborist, and Mark just to minimize the trees from like 87 down to 18. And we also have a proposed, and that plan is just proposed. We want to bring it to you if you see changes. So we wanted to give you a baseline on what I think this is a good idea, but it's just an idea. So I will turn it over to Arborist Hosback to go through the tree table.
Can we pull the tree table up?
And John, while that's coming up, am I understanding correctly then? So we're going to put a trail connecting the two together, and then how will we handle the private driveway? Will the trail be to the side of that?
It's bypassing it completely.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yep.
it parallels the driveway.
Okay.
So
Yep.
we're out
Where
of the
there's a lot of
property, and we're out of the private property right of way. It's solely on Brandywine Realty property.
right, and I think there's a lot of trees there now that have a lot of vines growing on them.
Right. So
Okay.
we really dealt with the trees that were in the limit of disturbance of our trail, because that, for lack of a better term, that portion of ground between the Brandywine Realty parking lot and the current driveway, what is now a driveway, has a lot of trees, not necessarily in the best of health.
Yeah.
But we limited our project to what's being removed to get the trail in.
And
So-
Ian, can you make that a little larger?
Yep.
Thank you.
So as Steve stated previously, our original intent was to remove 86 trees with the possibility of damaging 50 through overdig and all the good things that come along with the trail and the stormwater management. Mark, the planner for the project, and I met early this spring, and we tried to come for the trail and change up. We were minimizing all. We were hitting the speed less within our ordinance. If you are, we have Norway's and our we are those knowing that they're going to have to come back to full popper. So we have a total of 17 trees, with the largest trees being a mulberry of 36 inch and a Norway maple of 36 inches. 17 trees. You can see I put the condition rating on the right-hand side and the mitigation. Fortunately, we did add some extra trees in, and if Ian, can you move up to the actual planting? Should be a plan, should be a list there. I don't see it.
I did just a second ago.
Did it jump over?
Yeah, it was in the upper left-hand corner, I thought. There it is.
Okay.
The left-hand side. Yep.
Yep. Can we blow that up a little bit, Ian? So you can see our proposed species: Rutgers pink dogwood, black gum again, Rutgers pink dogwood, river birch, full oak, and these will compensate for the trees that are being removed. In addition,
Hey, John.
Yes.
As we get hotter and warmer and warmer and warmer, is river birch?
We're using the door heat. So, I mean, they're rated all the way down to the Carolinas.
Okay.
So as long as you're not using straight variety of river birch, as long as you're using the door heat, which is the cultivar, we're fine, and they perform very well.
All right.
We're also going to do some additional whips, which is over and above our plan, and we're going to outskirt them some areas where we have some open plots along the trail where invasives have occurred. We're going to just stick some whips in. I think we're sticking about 75 whips in, I believe. It's a great plan, great trail connection. And again, we worked very diligently to reduce our impact on the trees that were viable and utilize the invasives in the ash as our contour for this trail system.
Yeah. So John, I just see 7 trees listed here. Is that all that is required? Are you excluding those that are dead and hazardous? Is that how you worked that?
That's correct, yep.
And I can't recall from the table that we just saw previously, I'm okay with the ash trees. Was that also the case with the maple and
the Norway maples that were the Norway maple, only because they were hazard. There were some hazard trees in there.
Okay. I can't like were the heritage trees, were they hazardous?
That's correct. They were.
Okay.
Yep. And when I say hazardous, ready to fall over. I think the mulberry was actually leaning into another tree, but we cataloged it anyways.
I just want to say, John, thanks for your huge effort to reduce the number of trees that originally were planned to come out to this smaller number. Kudos to you for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll second that, Jenny. I mean, it's amazing, John, to go from that big number to this number. I mean, that's
you
really...
can thank Mr. Norsini. He made us go out there and do that, and that was our goal. We wanted to reduce, so we put our heads together and we figured out a perfect plan of less impact. So it was an effort by all of us for sure. And it's going to be a great trail connection. I mean, you know, obviously as Steve mentioned, the Bentley property there pretty much put a stop to that. And now you're, as Steve said, you can join the TAP trail with us. Is that occurring, Steve? This TAP trail, is that going forward?
We're right at the goal line, John. We have some more easements to get and have to go to bid with PennDOT, and it'll be back before the commissioners. So we're very close.
Great. Questions?
Okay. Yeah, none from me. I think it looks great that we're actually connecting the 2 properties, and especially I like the idea that it's a wood chip trail versus a paved trail.
Absolutely.
That's super. And I do know the trees in that area are, the ones I've seen are covered in vines. So, and they're not in the best shape.
And we are going to be utilizing not all of our resources. Obviously, we're going to need a lot more wood chips, but the wood chips that are gathered and obtained from the tree removal process will be used as a base for the Woodchip Trail. So we are doing total resource management for sure.
Oh, very green. Great. Okay, good. All in favor of approving? Aye. Okay, great. Thanks, John. Thank you, Steve. Okay, so now back to our agenda. Is there anything hot under new business? And let's see if I need to share it. I can. Okay.
Madam Chair, we do have one other item that I guess you could consider hot, and this would fall under John. He looked at this with my colleague, Steve McNellis. Tree removal on township property, corner of Conestoga and Sproul Roads.
Yep. So can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. An adjacent property to this little woodland parcel, I wouldn't call it a woodland parcel because every tree other than one little tiny serviceberry is a dead ash. And when I say dead, completely 100% dead, totally impacted by EAB. The neighboring property called, was very concerned. They had some limbs fall. So we went over toward the property and we concluded that 25 dead ash trees inhabit the area with a total of 19 that could be within striking distance of Conestoga Road and 320. Some of these trees are 80 feet in height with a DBH of anywhere from 24 to 36, completely dead. So unfortunately, I said, listen, we have to come for those 19 trees. We might as well take out the remaining 6 trees and be done with it. So our goal is to reduce the total impact there and not have any liability. It's an unfortunate situation. However, I believe that we have, because of our Arbor Day being canceled because of COVID-19, I think this should be maybe the Arbor Day project where we go in there with some whips and plant a couple trees as a group. It's a great location. It's definitely going to need some love after this is, after the trees will be removed, because it'll be totally engulfed in invasives within a year. So we do need to manage this accordingly.
Hey, John, Ian, could you please pull up Steve McNellis, one of the Shade Tree Commission, to see the quotes? I believe that the prices are in there, and he wanted to make sure you folks had an idea of the magnitude of the cost. I'm sorry to jump in.
Can I just ask a question? Can you clarify which corner that this is? Is it the corner, like if I'm coming from Bryn Mawr Avenue and I'm sitting at the light with the left turn signal, which corner am I looking at?
That would be it would be your left corner.
The left corner, so kind of
on the left-hand side.
So
once
I go under, so I go under the blue route and then it's right there?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay.
Can you picture it?
John's talking about from Conestoga. If you're coming down Sproul from Newtown Square, as you cross over Conestoga, it's on your right, in between Spring Mill and Sproul Road.
Correct. If you're coming from that way, yep.
Okay, so by the house with the pool, there's a house with a pool right there. First
That's
house.
correct.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So I'll let Shade Tree discuss, but I think everybody knows the heightened sensitivity of when we go in and just mow down a bunch of trees. So
yeah.
You guys discuss and then.
Yeah. So John, how many trees?
There's a total of 25 trees, Eileen, and out of those 25, 19 will, not maybe, will fail onto the roadway.
So 19 are hazardous?
No, they're all hazardous.
Okay.
There's 25 trees that are completely dead, declined beyond recovery. But we're already removing the 19 trees.
Yeah.
Just remove the remaining few trees just so there's no liability in the future with anybody going in there or,
how big is the actual property where the 25 trees are?
It looks to me like maybe a quarter of an acre at the most.
Oh, so it's pretty condensed.
Oh yeah. I didn't even know it was Radnor property until I was called to review it. I mean, you never stop there. You're usually flying by at that point. Nobody really observes that area, but it is very dangerous for sure.
Sorry, I cut out there for a second, guys. What's the issue there? You're clearing that?
There's all dead ash trees there, James.
Yeah,
Every
yeah.
tree is dead. Yep.
Okay.
And so we would.
This
Go
is
ahead, Matt.
while Steve's doing this. This is we're talking about one removal right here. We're talking about one situation, but all over this township, we're going to be going through this over and over and over. There are dead ash trees all over the place in these parks. John, you know that. It's like
absolutely.
This is not, this is not about one thing here. It's almost like it's a weird conversation because it's like this is a symptom of the bigger problem that we're going to have to face. We're going to have to face it. It's like we can't just ignore it. And you see the remnants of ash trees all over the place. There's stumps everywhere. Where like
Lisa makes a great point though. We have egg on our face from the 476 interchange. And Matt, you're correct. We have ash trees everywhere. I'm not sure we have them in the density that we have at this subject property. It is going to look like a clear cut. Lisa's 100% correct. I could see her eyes light up when we said 25 trees, and I'm like, uh-oh.
Yeah, but John, if they're dead, if they're dead, what's the point? Like,
we know that. But what I'm saying is, I think what Lisa's getting to, and correct me if I'm wrong, is there should be some sort of maybe publication that goes out from Molly, some kind of blast that goes out saying, hey, this is what we're doing, and then give it a month so people can realize what's going on and be available for comment.
But just to keep things in context, the township has been very, very good lately in saying where Pico is, where Esplenda.
Absolutely.
And they're taking, and anyone who's watching is watching the township or Esplenda or Pico take out hundreds of ash trees. So it's like, to me, this is just the same old. This is not clear cutting the Blue Route. This is like actually maybe saving some lives. There's a good spin on this, and it's like
I'm with you, my friend. I'm with you, but the perception.
Can I just want to say, so Matt, I 100% agree with you, and like I said, you guys discuss and decide what needs to be done best. You guys are the tree experts. I would just want to make sure that we clearly communicate with people. I think we also need to make sure that Commissioner Enderle is aware, because that's 3rd Ward over there. There is a heightened sensitivity, and when people don't pay attention, or when we aren't proactive in putting it out there, when I drive by that spot, I know where that is. I drive by it, I was driving by it every single day. I just drove by it a couple times today. It doesn't look like there's dead trees there. Like John, you saying that to me, I'd be like, really? I didn't, maybe because they're vine covered or whatever. Certainly trust your recommendation, Matt. I know you know this like the back of your hands. So I would just want to make sure that we are clearly communicating, because people will get upset. People will get upset, and that's why I think it's so important. And Steve and John, I appreciate you bringing it to Shade Tree. It is so important that you vet this out, and people that has come by you, and you guys have.
You're right. You're driving by level in your car, more road, you look on the roof, see. So.
I think what we'll do is we'll get with Molly Gallagher. We'll put something together, and we'll describe the project. But we're going to stress the safety concerns here. John, with distance of or Route 3. We'll post that and sit up there for a bit before Steve moves forward with anything. Steve McNellis, that is. And unfortunately, so even in Wayne, where we did a great thing and we planted 69 trees, I must have fielded 2 dozen calls of why we were cutting down all the trees in Wayne. And yet it was clearly on the website. So we'll do our best job, and we'll let our, Molly's a fantastic and communicator. So we'll give her some facts and let her put that out, if that's okay with the commissioner and this board. Absolutely. I think we'll probably send it to all the commissioners, so everybody's fully aware where it goes to the public, and take it from there.
I think that's great, Steve, but I would include in that whatever we put out for the public, I would include that this is the beginning of an ash tree removal process. I mean, there's so many ash trees taped. I mean, there's red tape on trees all over the place, and people probably are like, what are they doing? But this is, I mean, I think people are going to have to get used to a lot of ash trees being removed.
Great idea, Matt, and I would recommend strongly, and Molly loves feedback, I would recommend that you reach out to Molly via the phone and let her know this is coming, and maybe give her some feedback of what you should, should be. She loves that. She loves working within the public realm here.
Yep.
I would absolutely love it if this was, it was maybe even a joint announcement from the township and Shade Tree. I think people feel really confident when they know that Shade Tree has been engaged, in any process that involves, a lot of trees being removed.
Right. We could make it a message from the Shade Tree Commission of Radnor Township. And so we'll get a baseline, and then let Molly work with Shade Tree directly on how that looks before it goes out.
And any bad press, we just blame James Gibbons.
Yes.
Or we could blame his assistant, because he's huge, nobody's going to get mad at him. So.
Can I make a suggestion, please?
Sure, Jay.
Please.
So that place has looked terrible for years, and I think this is like probably the 5th discussion in 35 years that people have talked about clearing that area. And now they're all dead, so it's hazardous. If it's going to be done, you put out the communication like John said, and Lisa and Steve. Also, I think we should consider, we're coming into the summer months. People are busy. We're going to have to talk about the fall planting. Maybe instead of doing the traditional plant at homes, take some of that money that we have, and maybe along with the removal, put in the communication to plant there as well. And it's a pretty big intersection, so people will notice that.
I was just thinking the same thing, James, about the fall planting. Plus, I noticed that we had to take out like 50 trees because of the bad storm. So
yeah,
maybe that's the way to use our fall.
See, Eileen's wheels are turning. Eileen's wheels are turning.
I like the idea, but I can't buy into it just yet, because I think there could be areas in the township that have a higher need or would get more visibility. So just because we're clearing trees from this area, I wouldn't necessarily make this priority number 1. So I think it's something to consider for the plant. But I would also look at any of the other areas that are in need of trees.
So if I may add, so that the pricing is in the packet. Just to let everybody know, Steve McNellis got 3 prices. Ruddy Tree Service, $13,800. Shriner Tree Care, $13,815. And Horgan Tree Experts, $5,500. So my assumption is we'll go with Horgan. Before we do move on, Madam Chairman, I do have one more hot one for you, and to use your term. That would be the Emlyn Tunnel Park. We've been trying to get that in front of you folks for when we're done here.
Okay, yeah, if we can just finish this topic. So I think it sounds, so one, let's see, so motion to approve basically clearing this area, understanding it is all hazardous trees. So 25 trees to be removed. All in favor? Aye. Anyone object?
Can I make an amendment to that?
Yeah, go ahead, James.
And again, I want to stress the replanting. I actually know the person that lives right next to it, and you're going to be clear cutting that and opening him up. I really think we need to at least if we approve this, consider it, or I think the cost of the township, $5,500 from Oregon, I think there's plenty of room there to get a couple trees at least.
Absolutely.
Okay, so why don't we say with consideration to prioritize this area in the fall planting?
Well,
Or Lisa?
Can I just add one thing? So John had said in the beginning using maybe at least like doing an Arbor Day thing there or something. I agree with James. I mean, once all that stuff goes, I mean, that's blocking the house from an extremely busy intersection as well. So, you know, I think that if we can do maybe something small in the interim through the Arbor Day thing that John suggested, and then maybe look at it again in the fall planting when you guys are ready to consider that, that would be good. You know, but I agree with James. You know, if you go by there and you see that, I'm going to tell you that it's like woods there, and or at least the perception is that it is. So I think it would be good if we could consider that.
Yeah. And just another clarification question. So John, you're removing 25 trees. Are there any trees that are staying?
There's some understory trees. We didn't really evaluate those in depth. We are pretty much focused just on the ash trees and the liability trees. I mean, we'll get some regeneration. There's probably not a lot of deer traffic right there.
Right.
But most of it, Eileen, to be honest, is invasive.
Okay, so in essence, we are clear cutting this
Correct.
property. Okay.
Except for the very edge, yes.
Okay. Okay, so I understand, I can't visualize this corner myself, but for those of you that can, I understand the concern that
that's correct.
As someone, if you lived there, would probably not be happy all of a sudden with this open space. So, okay, that's fair.
Really busy intersection there.
Yep. Okay. Okay, so can we mark, so are we all in favor of approving, the clear cutting of these 25 trees because they are indeed hazardous to anyone using that roadway, at least minimally, all but 19 of them would potentially fall on the roadway. So we'll clear 25 at the same time. And then we'll look to prioritize this area either for Arbor Day planting or for the fall planting. So does that sound okay? Is everyone in favor of that?
Can I add that we reach out to the neighbor
proactively?
Proactively, just to say.
So if I could jump in here, so the neighbor called me and said, you saved me from a divorce by getting these 25 dead trees out of here. So I think he's very happy right now. So anything we would do is just be a bonus for him.
Yeah. And in addition, we agreed we'll have Matt. What, Frank?
Was he thanking you for saving him from the divorce?
No, he's thanking us for getting rid of the hazard trees. His wife, I guess, has been screaming at him.
Okay.
You should have told him down himself. You should have told him, John.
Okay. So everything I said before, with the agreement that Matt will talk to Molly and we'll look to communicate this broadly, publicly, before we actually take action. So minimally, John, I assume you'll give us 30 days before you start any efforts in this area?
Unless Mr. Norsini or Mr. McNellis lets me know, I mean, I won't know when this is going to occur, but I don't think anything should be authorized until this notification goes out.
Yeah, so Eileen, Steve McNellis from Public Works handles this portion of the tree work.
That's true.
So
Yeah.
I will fill him in on this and let him know that Matt and John will work on some baseline verbiage for Molly. We'll let that get all taken care of. We'll make sure that goes to the commissioners, goes to the public, and he can schedule. Obviously, he's going to use Horgan because he's less than half the price. So he can schedule accordingly with Horgan for that. And we'll make sure he's in the loop on all this.
Okay, we just need some lag time from the time that it's communicated to the time that it actually occurs. So that's why I recommend 30 days.
Steve, I know this is below the threshold that has to come to the commissioners, but I'm just wondering if maybe at Monday's meeting and new business, we just bring it up and just to let people know and that this is going to be happening. I can't tell you I mean, you guys know as well as I do, the heightened awareness to anything that appears to be clear cutting right now. So
Yep.
If we,
I'm still getting calls to this day about 476. What happened? So.
me too.
Believe it or not, I just got one today.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely, Commissioner. I'll talk to the manager and see how he wants to, how or who brings it up and all that good stuff.
It could just be, an FYI to the commissioners.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So I think we're squared away, and I just want to reemphasize, I do like Matt's idea that when we work with Molly to communicate this, also showing, hey, this is part of a much bigger plan, because now we do have this tree survey and we have the hazardous trees identified. So we do want to be proactive in taking them down so people don't lose power, so we don't risk any residents or businesses. So yeah, I think that's great. Thanks, Matt.
Sure.
Okay, so now, all in favor of approving? Okay, aye. Great, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Hey, Steve, no more hot ones, all right?
No, Steve already lobbied us before we even closed this topic for another hot one. I see your tactic. Okay, so Steve, you wanted to talk about
by 1,000 cuts.
Emlyn?
Yes, ma'am. So,
okay, so guys, this is 8C under old business.
so if you can, let me blow this up a little bit. So Emlyn Tennell Park, which is located on Garrett Avenue, great park, has a couple ball fields, has a walking path. Give you a little quick history, primarily used by girls sports, and the Township Board of Commissioners, and spearheaded on the staff side by Tammy Cohen, our Director of Recreation and Community Programming, who does a fantastic job. You may know that over at Enke Field, we have a great restroom for all the kids that use that. And that's primarily boys. Over here now, we have a fantastic restroom facility for girls. So it's an equality issue. It was always porta potties at this park. And for as long as I've been involved in parks, which is some 20 years, one of the differences between a top-notch park is a restroom where you can actually restroom, change your child, your kid in the restroom. There's a very small snack bar there for prepared foods, not for cooked foods. So kudos to Mrs. Cohen for a great job. She worked tirelessly on the design. It's actually a kit that we bought, and we went and we had a contractor put it together, but Tammy, picked all the colors, picked the style, from soup to nuts. So she did a great job. So the restroom is in, and during this period, if you can see what's in front of us, I'm going to start over here on the far right. So I'm going to say sometime last year, or it predated this survey, or after this survey was done, these 6 trees were removed by Public Works prior to the project starting, right? For the project itself, 3 trees were removed for the comfort station. This one, and this one. Obviously, this one was dead in the middle of the comfort station. This was in the grading of the comfort station, and this was in the grading. So there's slopes that go down, and this path was reconstructed. The good thing is, these 2 trees were slated for removal, and they were able to be saved. Now, one of these trees, that's this one here, which was saved, but which work was close to, we are monitoring, to make sure that it lasts. So we have a very engaged community in Garrett Hill, and they use this park a lot, and they keep me informed, and Tammy Cohen and the manager of what's going on there. So they have a lot of concern for this tree. So John Hosbach has already been out there several times, and he will continue to monitor it to see if it will need replacement. So what we're here before the Shade Tree Commission is to let you know these trees were removed. We want to replant. So I asked Mr. Hosbach to put together a tree table, and he has some suggestions for what goes back, but we'd really like to get your input as to, some of the species. And if you're willing, we could meet you out there me, you, and John, and I'd bring Tammy out also to make sure we don't, one of the things we have to make sure is her programming has changed for this summer, obviously during the pandemic, but I just want to make sure that whatever we do, we don't affect programming, whether it be hers or one of the schools that use the park. And just so you know, the park is mainly owned by the Radnor Township School District. The only thing that, and we have a lease agreement, we own the portion where there used to be a house up here. So we removed these trees. There were 9 trees removed. Again, some prior to the project, some for the project. And
2 of them were dead. 2 of them were dead, Steve, just so we know that.
Great, thank you, because I didn't know much about these trees here. They were gone when I got involved. So Mr. Hospak put together a tree table as well as some suggested species. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I can bring that up at any time and switch over to Mr. Hospak for the last hot topic of the night.
Can everybody say it?
Yes.
So we have 4 trees at 8-inch DPH that were removed. So we have 4 trees at 2.5-inch caliper, 4 trees at 12 inches, 4 trees to be planted at 2.5-inch, and 1 tree. And the species that we're preparing are 3 black gum, 3 hackberry, and 3 yellowwood. The site does have some wet conditions on the peripheral, so I felt those species would adapt well in those conditions, from my experience out there.
And John, I'm not familiar with the hackberry or yellowwood. Are those large canopy trees?
They are. Yep.
Okay. I have no issue with that. That sounds good. Are there questions from folks?
John?
Mm-hmm.
John, are they all, so all 9 of them, are they all large canopy?
That's correct, yes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is great because that wouldn't be required given the size of the trees being removed. So that's
correct.
That's super. Yeah.
Want to make sure we're putting all shade trees back in where we can. No ornamentals.
Yeah, just in terms of perspective, Frank and I walked around Garrett Hill looking for when he had his replacement coming in from PHS, and this neighborhood is one of the neighborhoods in Radnor that's lost trees, like a lot of street trees, so people I think in Garrett Hill are very sensitive to the loss of trees, and so this anything we can do to put a good spin on this, because it is a good story, it is important too.
Can I add some perspective from Parks and Rec?
Sure.
We've been working on this comfort station, many different locations, iterations. Part of that park is owned by the school district. So this is, correct me, Steve, but this is a 3-year-long project. And
you are correct.
And well overdue. So anything that we can do really to, proactively, and the neighbors are very tight, the properties are tight, and they want to make sure that that park is preserved in a way that is good for the neighborhood. So I'm all in favor of this, to save what we can and replace and do what we can for this neighborhood.
They are a very community, and I get contacted regularly on the condition of the 1 tree that we're monitoring and what we're going to put back, and we get reports all the time about the condition of the park, if there's a broken branch. And we also get kudos to the public works guys for the job they do, as well as Tammy Cohen for this the work she's done on this on several iterations. The last one had a lot of input from the community. So what I would ask the Shade Tree Commission approve is that we move forward with the planting of the 9 trees per the township arborist. Myself, the township arborist, and Tammy Cohen will meet out there. We'll select locations, and then we'll address having to get funding to get these trees in.
And that'll be the fall, so everybody knows.
Correct.
Yep. Makes sense.
Can I add another question, or can I ask a question? Is once we put in the trees, we're a lot of new trees going into this township. Do we have a maintenance plan just to keep them alive?
So that's great. Good.
So when trees are first planted, we use an outside contractor, and we always require tree bags. So there's always at least a year warranty on the trees. But you know, you are correct. Maintenance of trees is a huge issue, and I don't want to speak for Steve McNellis at all, the Public Works Director, but you know, we don't have a staff arborist or a staff tree crew. The guys do maintain everything in all the parks. I think they do a bang up job. I think they do a great job in our parks. Our parks look fantastic, you know, when they're back full force. So with Mr. Hosbach and the Public Works crew, we'll be on top of these trees.
And I assume in the contract, just like we do for the fall planting, we'll contract X amount of waterings after the initial planting.
So all seasons who's been doing our plantings has been watering on his own. I mean, he has been a gem. I mean, he is a great partner with Radnor. I mean, he went out and replaced trees that I believed were marginal. He didn't give us any grief. Just actually did a great job at Phillip Home Park, screening the compost bin. So yeah, he's great about watering. He does a couple waterings, but we are going to update our watering schedule to the bidders, and I'm going to include 5 to 6 extra waterings from the initial watering at the planting time. So, and to piggyback that real quick, not to get off topic, the water bags are going back on in the Wayne Business District for all the trees that were planted last year. So they're going back on mid next week now that we're coming into the hot and dry season.
Okay, super.
Thanks, Mr. Rossini.
Okay, so all in favor of approving the replacement plan at Emlyn Tunnel Park?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, very good.
Eileen, before you go any further, I just want to on record that we have not received any public comment.
Good. Thanks, Trish, for keeping us honest and checking that. Thank you. Okay, good. Okay, so folks, I'm aware it's 8:30 and we're like 2 hours in. So my proposal would be what I would see as the 2 hottest goals are the proactive communication to our residents and businesses, given that, you know, a lot of folks don't know about our ordinances, and we end up in the situation that we were last month where folks are accidentally taking down trees, not knowing that there's an ordinance in place. So I think that's a hot goal. I think the other one is the fall tree planting, because that will be here before we know it. So I think we have 2 approaches. Either we can discuss this as a group, or we can appoint kind of sub-teams for each, meet during the month of June, and we could schedule an interim meeting between the June and July meeting, like let's say 2 weeks from now, maybe for an hour, and talk through these 2 topics, or we could wait and have a chunkier meeting in July. So what are people's preferences?
I'm okay for an interim meeting.
I am too. That'd be fine with me.
Yeah.
Is tabled till next month, because I know Seth sent me some like a flyer, and it was amazing, and I think that he should be here to at least show us what he has done.
That's a good point, Trish.
Yeah, and we've been talking with Seth even offline. So Trish, I absolutely agree, because he and Ginny really are leading up our communications efforts. So I would want both of them there. But that wouldn't preclude us from having an interim meeting, you know, assuming that Seth can make it there. So what do others think? We can either continue and have one long meeting tonight, have an interim meeting where we don't cover resident plans, but we just do the goals and such, the fall planting and the communication for an hour, or table everything to July and have some folks work on it offline in between now and July.
So if we do it, Steve, can you intervene on this one? If we do an interim meeting, number one, we have to make sure that we have something available, and 2, we would have to post it to.
scheduled meeting. The Shade Tree Commission is a virtual meeting. You know, the subcommittee meeting, we are going to have, and probably kind of what we ran into on this time. So basically all the meetings are coming back, all the various advisory committee meetings are coming back. They're physical meetings, which requires Ian to be there. So Ian is the Zoom master. He is the man behind the curtain. He is definitely the Wizard of Oz on all this. So we have to make sure that it's not the night. If we have a virtual meeting, it can't be the night we have a physical advisory committee meeting because Ian will be there. If we want to have a physical meeting, now we're up against trying to fit in based on our meeting schedule, plus all the very different community groups that use the Radnorshire room. The Radnorshire room slows down in the summer, but in more or less, it is booked from Monday through Thursday most weeks. It's amazing the amount of folks that use it. So whatever the commission wishes to do and however you wish to do it, if you want to have a subcommittee meeting, we can advertise that. If you want to have an interim meeting, we just need to work with Ian and get it figured out.
Does the township have more than one Zoom account? Like, could we just, because we wouldn't need to show any drawings.
Well,
it's a matter of Ian having to record it.
Right, because it's recorded and it's live streamed. So unfortunately, it's always going to involve Ian. So there is only one township Zoom meeting and it has to be run by him.
Okay.
We could meet informally on Microsoft Teams. I use 10 times a day. But for these official meetings, it's got to be Ian.
Right. Okay, so if we wanted to have an interim meeting, it would be all of us. So it would have to be official. Okay.
I had something else to suggest is halfway between now and our July meeting is basic 4th of July weekend. So we may be losing people. I don't know, with a little pent up demand to go and be with family or something. Might be tough.
Okay. Ginny.
I mean, I would be in favor of talking about the fall planning tonight. I don't know if it's too late for people to go into that one topic. I agree we should wait until Seth is available to talk about the flyer, but given the time, and I agree with Claire, an interim meeting is going to hit 4th of July, and I know I'm going to be away. So I don't know if it's that big a topic to discuss now, the fall planting. I need, as opposed to going out to the public, especially
I know moved their free tree giveaway also to October. So
correct.
They're doing that, and I know they've already given away, I think, 500 trees.
That's right. Yeah, they had folks register right away. Okay, so is there, it sounds like an interim meeting won't work between now and the July meeting. So are folks in favor of still continuing this meeting and talking about the fall planting? And then
I think we really need to prepare some housekeeping items for the fall planting. I know the contractor had some.
So, yeah, so maybe, I think minimally we need to pick who's going to lead the fall planting. And then we can talk about some guidance. And then I would propose that we set up somebody who can work offline on the communications. I'm happy to contribute such that we can come in July. And I would say then July, we would have to prioritize these topics. But I would say, can we book an interim meeting then between July and August? Because otherwise, I think we're never going to get through the backlog that we have here. Unless somebody has some other way to get through this backlog.
Well, I think, to be honest, I mean, if you're going to give us, 2 months, I think that that's plenty of time for us to figure out a spot or a couple days that are available that we can you know,
Great. So
say you
Trish, why don't
guys,
you,
hey,
if you, okay, so let's take that on. Trish, can you just pick a date, coordinate that, something between July and August?
Yep.
Great. And all we need is a majority. Okay, so fall planting tonight. Who would like to lead the fall planting this year? Let's start there.
Can I be second in command because I'd like to learn how to do it?
Certainly. That's easy.
Well, I'm happy
So
to take it on again, Eileen. I feel like I actually
that'd
know
be
what I'm
great.
doing now.
Okay, Ginny, that I would be a fan of that. Is everybody okay with that? If Ginny were to lead it,
Absolutely.
and have Frank as the number 2?
Sounds great.
Yeah, yeah, that would be great. Okay, super. So, Ginny, do you want to talk through? Do you have ideas based on last year? I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot, but you know we were thinking this would be on the agenda. Do you want to talk through what you're thinking for 2020?
Well, do we, I mean, I guess my first question would be, do we want to open it up to the public, or do we want to use the monies for township initiated projects?
We have just to,
possible.
yeah, I think I would go for both as well.
Sort of split our funds between the two initiatives,
Yeah.
one with part of it with the public and part of it towards township projects.
Yeah, I think what could be interesting this year is that the spring and the fall are combined, which we were talking about doing anyhow. So I think that's good with the idea that, hey, the Conservancy would have been in the spring. And then that would put us up around, let's say, 140 trees. That would be what the funding would be available for. So let's say about 140 trees in the fall.
Okay.
And previously, we've always had trouble trying to get them all filled, such that we did end up putting some in the parks, you know, such that it was kind of split between the township and the residents. So I think
Right.
that's a good approach.
I mean, do we think that since the Conservancy is also having their initiative, they're planting in the fall now, is that going to be, you know, a conflict because theirs is free and ours is not?
Not at all, because that's, you know, that's a giveaway and this is actually a planting.
And the other thing that leads me to align with what John is saying is that I was amazed at how quickly they had 500 people register for all those trees. So I thought that was positive. Like clearly there's a demand.
And I would think so. I think a lot of people lost trees through this storm, so there probably is a good need for it. So I think that last time John had drafted up a really good memo that had really helpful instructions and follow up on how it was going to go. And I mean, I don't have my notes in front of me as lessons learned, but I can look that up and maybe send out an email so that folks sort of get the gist on how this could be run.
So Jenny, can I just make one comment? So with the contractor all seasons last year, the biggest tribulation that we had was the flags were placed and then everybody that was getting a tree, either their mowing service or
right.
the homeowner, flags were blown off. And we had to go out to numerous sites to reflag. I remember we all met one evening. Remember we went our different ways. That worked great. I want to continue that. That was a great idea of yours, Jenny. Perfect. What I want to continue though is how do we manage the locations of those trees? Because I mean, we had some where we couldn't get a hold of the people. They were working during the day. The tree showed up and the flag was gone. And then we come home and the tree was in the wrong spot. That's not where they wanted it. So we had a few of those calls from Leah McVeigh in Public Works, and also Miss Trish over there was getting calls every day as well. So
Yeah,
how do we
getting
minimize that
myself.
impact?
Yeah, you're right, John. Do we want to take away the initiative of letting them place the flag where they want it? Because yeah, that caused a lot of problems. Maybe we go out and put it where
my recommendation is we provide some sort of right-of-way guideline for all seasons or whoever's doing the project this year. Let them know what our guidelines are. That has to be a street tree. They do a line locate on the property, which will obviously delineate where they can and cannot plant. And at that time, you know, they pick the best choice with our guidance of location and species.
I mean, I think that would be really helpful, but the other issue is not resolved though. You know, their mowing service removes the flag, it gets blown away or whatever. I mean, all those questions, all those calls are still there.
I mean, we could
place
do
it where we think is best.
I mean, one option is that because we got to give the contractor, he has the 3-day grace period for the Pennsylvania one call system. So we have to give at least 3 days. I think that we should change it up and do permanent survey stakes, the wooden stakes. Put them in the ground, they're more permanent. And then we can actually take a Sharpie and write the species on the actual wooden stake, less likely to be damaged or removed by a lawn service.
Can I make a suggestion?
That's a great idea.
So I don't get involved in the implementation, but I create the contract. And I know in my days when I put, even if they're wooden stakes, and I agree with John, people do move them. They're gonna be like, I don't want this here. So it'll entail a lot more work depending on how many trees you're planting. And we can't always get a clear shot. But my thought would be, we do a Google Earth Street View and we put a dot where that tree's going. And we send that to the resident and say, it's going in this area. And the contractor gets that. So no stake, flag, they have a very good idea where it goes. We know the right of way for every street. We can let him know that it's X feet from center. And like I say, it'll take time to do that, especially if there's 70 trees and 70 properties. And not all properties can really be viewed well from Google Street View, but most can. Maybe that's a way so that, you know, we send that to the resident and say, here's what we looked at. Here's the spot it's going. And that way there should be no, because landscapers hit stakes, sometimes they pull them out so they can cut through it and then they just throw it back in the ground somewhere around there. So they do move and people move them.
Yeah.
What about
could
painting?
we another maybe alternative? The paint they could cut away, or I guess it could wash away as the grass grows.
Going back every week to paint it.
But yeah, to market. Yeah.
So
Could we
John, would
do
you be the
playing
one
on
to
John's
be
idea
Google
about the
Earth?
stake?
Steve has a good point about the stake. I think the stake is definitely better than a flag. I mean, a flag is only 1 foot.
1,000% better.
So
for the stake, guys,
so we can take the stake and everybody can download that's going out, download Google Earth Pro on their phone. It's free. And you can go out and I can quickly show you how you can just quickly pick up the location of that thing. And then you can send it to me and then we can put it on one big map and push it over to Mr. Nursini to dress it up and make it look pretty for us.
Yeah.
If so be.
Can I offer a lower tech, low maintenance idea? Could we do the stake and just simply mark on it, new tree coming, do not remove? And with the idea that
I think that's great, but I mean, I get survey stakes moved, you know, official survey for project.
Yeah. My thought being, if it's the minority, do we really want to create this whole system?
It wasn't a minority last year. It was over 25 trees last year that we had to recreate the wheel with.
Okay. Okay. Then I'm okay with the Google Earth idea. If you guys are okay taking that on.
So John, if I understand you correctly, we would still tell the homeowner, put your stake, you know, where you want it with, you know, within these guidelines. We use Google Earth to map it. I don't know how, I mean, I use Google
here's
Earth
a better idea.
What am I doing? Taking a picture?
Exactly.
Using Google Earth?
Let me jump in here for a second. I have a better idea. When we know who the contractor, who it's going to be, okay, we go out and we flag the locations with the stake. Part of the contract that Steve writes is they have to go out immediately, and this might cost us a few extra bucks. They need to go out and actually take a picture of the location, and then that'll solve it. It'll be all on him to manage this. That's what we're paying him for. So
That's a great
contract will
idea.
state he has to go out, mark trade, and then we're done. Puts all the onus on him.
I love it.
I know, right? Oh my God, he came in.
Okay.
Well done.
My-
Okay.
That's only
Okay,
good
so
if he wins the contract.
moving
right?
forward. Hey guys, what if we take this offline and figure out the details? It sounds like we like this Google Earth idea, but can we work out the details offline? Would
Yep.
that be okay?
Sure.
Okay. So Ginny, other things that you want to address about the fall planting that come to mind?
So are we thinking October again?
Yep.
Okay.
Can I make
Yeah.
a suggestion?
Yes.
Is there any chance we could save some of the trees for next spring? Because a lot of the trees in October are going to be a fall dig hazard, like the big shade trees that we would want to plant in the township. So I know we like to spend the money this calendar year, but if we could somehow save some of it and add on to next spring, then we could plant more oak trees, more nissas, more gumballs, stuff like that. That are trees that we always seem to like to plant.
Steve, does the budget allow for us to pay it in 2020, hold the check until 21, and give him the check after everything's done? So it's like it's a one project, but it has two phases.
I would check with our past finance director / new manager or our current finance director to see how that works.
Got it.
I mean, ultimately, we want to pay for every project as best we can in the calendar year that it's done. It's cleaner from an accounting standpoint. So I would suggest either whatever you want to plant this fall, understand your budget and plan accordingly to spend your budget, if that's what you do, for this year. And then next spring, you can do another program with 2021 dollars. But I would recommend completing it this year.
Got it.
Yeah, I agree with Steve.
Okay.
Like you guys have the money, like now.
Yes. Yep. I agree. Okay.
So Steve, what?
So we'll
would you
consider
do
that for
me
next year,
now,
2021.
rolling?
What about door hangers on the door? Little memo that goes have an actual door. It was pretty generic, but it was a cool idea, and we could